The highest honor awarded by the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association is the Fred W. Hoover Award of Excellence. This award honors members that have given unselfishly to the association and its membership for many years.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Wagner. I'm a U of SC athletic training student, and today I have with me Scott Douglas, which is a 2017 inductee into the Hoover recipient. So just going into the first question that I have. So it talks about where did you go to school, and what was your college degree, and what your field of study was, and how did that career path lead you to South Carolina?
I went to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and I majored in zoology. And then I got my master's degree at the University of South Carolina, and taught in North Carolina for 10 years. I was an athletic trainer in North Carolina at high school for 9 years, and then got an opportunity to come to Irmo High School in 1985, and I moved down here then.
Okay. And so you had been was Irmo High School, was that like the longest place that you had been?
Yeah, I was there for 29 years.
Okay.
And I was at a high school in Charlotte for 10.
So I know you said that you majored. So was it your master's that was in athletic training, or kind of how did you come from zoology to athletic training?
Well, see, back in those days, what happened when I got out of school and started teaching? North Carolina was trying to implement athletic trainers in the high school. And, frankly, there just weren't any that were available. So the state of North Carolina, under the direction of a guy named Dr. Al Proctor, kind of got this program started. He sold it. And the state of North Carolina started a program. It was called Athletic Trainers Teacher Incentive Program, something like that. Where you could, and the NATA agreed to do it, that they would allow North Carolina to set up a program that would make you eligible for certification. So, back in those days, you could go to a program that had an athletic training program, or, remember the old internship program. You probably don't remember that, but it was kind of like on-the-job training. But this program was even different than that. It was called I misspoke. It was called the North Carolina Athletic Trainers Teachers thing. And I remember the name of it now, so long ago. But basically, went back to school in the summertime at North Carolina State University, 6 weeks each summer for about 3 summers. And then we were supposedly under the supervision of a certified athletic trainer. And the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools at that time had hired a certified athletic trainer to oversee. There were 2 of us in that program from Charlotte at the time. And that's how I got certified. I completed that program, became NATA exam eligible, and took the exam and somehow passed it. So.
Okay. And so I know that was all in North Carolina. So was it, whenever you moved to South Carolina, was it easily transferable, I guess?
Well, I was NATA certified. So, okay. I mean, that, there was no question about that. North Carolina at that time didn't have licensure or certification for athletic trainers. So when I came down here, I just got involved with the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association. My certification number is 031. That was a while ago. I think Mr. Hoover is 001.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a whole lot different.
It is. It's definitely different. I mean, considering I'm in a master's program now, I've become do athletic training, just to think and look back, kind of see how far just the education aspect of it has come is pretty incredible for sure.
Yeah, it's been huge changes. We'll see if they're all good here in the future. I have concerns about at the athletic trainers in the high school level, where they're going to come from in the next 15 years. So,
It's true.
but anyhow, another topic.
All right. So going on to the next question, it talked about, wanted to ask who influenced you during the early days of your career?
Well, most of it was from a lot of those classes I took with that program in North Carolina. Those guys were really influential. They brought in college athletic trainers from around the country to teach those classes. And one of them that taught up there occasionally was a guy named Warren Ariel. Warren's an old timer, goes way back. He's in the National Athletic Trainer Hall of Fame, I think, and all this stuff. But he was influential. But and Al Proctor and Al's assistant Robbie Lester were really influential too at that time. A guy named Dennis Ayton from Eastern Illinois University was one of our instructors. I really liked him, and those guys they motivated me to keep on doing it. I really enjoyed taking those classes, and I was always kind of a wannabe doctor as an undergraduate anyway. So this was probably the next best thing. So. And then when I came to South Carolina, the South Carolina Athletic Trainers Association, those guys, we were small then. I mean, like I said, I was the 31st guy to get South Carolina certification. It was different than in North Carolina. In North Carolina, the North Carolina Athletic Trainer was only high school guys. There were hardly any college guys in the North Carolina Athletic Trainers Association at that time. And when I came down here in '85, everybody was together, and guys like Andy Clausen and Fred Hoover and, guys like that, just getting to talk to them, rubbing elbows with them, that was a huge influence too.
Awesome. So kind of going on, I guess, to another question. So I know you talked about like how whenever you were coming in, you had to take like summer classes in a way to kind of get to the certification process. Were there any other like hot topics in your early years of athletic training?
It's funny that the hot topics in the early years are kind of like the same they are now, I guess. I haven't been keeping up lately, but heat illness, because it was hot as all blue blazes in Charlotte, just like it is down here. Whether to remove the helmet or not on spinal cord injuries was always a huge topic. We talked about that all the time. And then just all the general stuff like you guys still talk about today.
Gotcha. So I guess, yeah, we've gotten a lot of that through like our education, kind of talking about this once. I guess was a big thing back then, like cold tub immersion.
Not so much at the beginning. I mean, it was obviously cool everybody down as quickly as possible. But the cold tub immersion didn't come up, for several years.
Okay.
I mean, it was basically kind of the same thing. Get them in the shade, cool them down, try to hydrate them, that kind of thing. But no, we didn't talk early on about throwing them in a tub of cold water, ice water. There was some debate that early on, whether that would be harmful.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember like thinking of like when I was first learning about it, like thinking that it could throw someone into shock, but I guess like there is a lot of research out there now that supports it as like the best evidence and stuff. So it's definitely
Right. Yeah.
So going on to the next question, how did the coaching fraternity view or accept athletic trainers during the early years? And maybe what are some battles that you had to endure? Because also maybe if you wanted to speak on like being an athletic trainer as well as like assistant athletic director, if that like helped any way and how you were maybe able to advocate for athletic training in that athletic director position?
I'll be honest with you. Two high schools that I were at, the first coach that I worked for, he was the one that encouraged me to get into that. He actually came to me one day. I was a new teacher there my first year, and he said, "Hey, we need an athletic trainer for the football team." So he advocated for that. And I said, "Man, that's great." I said, "What's that?" What's an athletic trainer do? And he told me, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to do that." Because like I said, I had visions of going to medical school, and that ended pretty quickly, but like a lot of guys. So obviously, since he was advocating to have an athletic trainer on the staff, there was no problem when I first started, and he probably knew more about stuff than I did because he'd been coaching for a long time. Second guy was just as good. He was glad that I was there. I just was real lucky. I hear a lot of my friends that have had to battle with their ADs or their head football coaches. I never had to do that. It wasn't anything to do with my abilities or anything. It's just that, my attitude was, I wasn't there to tell those guys what to do. I was there to help try to make things better, and they wanted to win football games. And I think they saw that I was all about winning football games, but, there was a way to make these guys stay healthier. When they got back to play, they'd be better than they were before. Before they were injured, so to speak. So I just never ran into any big problems like that. And when I came to Irmo, things even got better. All the coaches there were, they had two athletic trainers prior to me. And those guys had done a fantastic job. So they were all tuned into what the job of an athletic trainer was and what his role was, and never had any problems. I know that's not true of everybody, especially in high school. I never was in college, but I never had any issues.
Yeah, I feel like I've kind of heard from like past preceptors about like some of the coaching like struggles with coaches but that's like pretty interesting to hear that you were lucky and like had good experience, which is what we all kind of hope for with a coach, because obviously we don't want to have like that added pressure of going against the coach when making like these tough medical decisions.
A lot about your own attitude. If you come in there like, I know everything and I'm going to tell you what to do, nobody's going to react to that well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. So I believe, were you also like assistant athletic director in some settings? Was that
only? I was at Irmo. I was assistant AD at Irmo for about 15 years.
Okay. And so was there like, I guess maybe could you explain maybe how that relationship was, like you being athletic trainer as well as assistant AD, and like how maybe that like, I guess, affected like your pool? Like, did you get like more pool and like be able to like advocate for more things?
Not really. To be honest with you, I was there all the time. And, in a high school setting, I never, in my 39-year career, I had an assistant 1 year. That was my last year working. And that young man is the athletic trainer at Irmo now. So it was always just me. So, I was there a lot, and basically when the assistant AD job came open, I applied for it because it was extra money. I'm being honest with you now. And, I was there anyhow, and it wasn't like the duties of the assistant athletic director were going to take away from any of my athletic training duties. And I got paid more money to do it. And again, the advocate part was, the stage was set for me when I came to Irmo. The guy that was preceded me, Dunny Dunlap, had done such a fantastic job. All the coaches there understood what the role of the athletic trainer was and what he could do. It was like, hey, I know you can make me a more successful coach. And so I didn't, I didn't have to, impress anybody with, or convince anybody that having an athletic trainer on staff or around your team was something you needed. They all knew that already. It was just a great group to work with. It was I was just very, very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely like a good experience. Like, it's definitely good whenever basically, I guess, our predecessors or like people that like follow and come before us kind of can advocate and like put us in a good position. That's definitely beneficial for sure.
Oh yeah. It helped me.
For sure, yeah. So I know like over your 30 plus years, I don't know how many different positions you worked with, but were there any physicians that you worked with that seem to have a influential part in the setup of SCADA?
Well, I don't know about SCADA, but when I came to Irmo, I had two doctors at the time, David Kuhn Sr., who was our team physician, who had been there for a while already, so I already inherited him, and Dr. Robert Peel, who was an orthopedist over at Midlands Orthopedics. Dunny, the previous athletic trainer, had relationships with them. And again, just being, I think the good Lord he probably knew I couldn't do it on my own. So he just handed me stuff all the way. I came in and I just inherited those two guys, and they were just, willing and eager to continue to work with me. And so that they were great. Dr. Peel at that time was the team physician for the University of South Carolina football team. That was long before you got there.
Could you maybe expand on like maybe the importance of the relationship, or like how important it is to have a good relationship with your physicians?
Are you kidding? That's what saved my hiney. That having that relationship with those two guys who were literally, and I'm not exaggerating, literally a phone call away. If I had a problem or I had, something going on I wasn't sure about, or I needed to, pick up the phone and, especially with Dr. Kuhn, he was, he's a close personal friend now, but I mean, back in those days, if, we had a sick athlete, an injured athlete, and I had, if it was a situation where you had some doubts about which way to go or what you needed to do, which way to head, and pick up the phone and talk to them. And Dr. Peel was just as good. I mean, getting them in over there at Midlands, it wasn't any of this, well, we can see him next week. Yeah, bring him over this afternoon, or I'll come by this afternoon after practice late. You still going to be there? I'll meet you in the training room. I mean, that was fantastic. You talking about taking the weight off your shoulders, knowing that those two guys and then the guys that followed them were willing to do that for you was fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome for sure. So I know I talked about like the physician's role and maybe SCADA, but I know you talked about Fred Hoover a little bit and about how he kind of was involved in setting up some of the SCADA meetings. And I was wondering if you could maybe, if you knew like of all the individuals, maybe like a few of the individuals that were in charge of helping to first organize that meeting of athletic trainers in South Carolina, and then maybe as you were an athletic trainer in South Carolina, kind of what your commitment looked like to SCADA.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I know that Fred Hoover, Andy Clausen, and those two guys, and there might be others, and I wasn't here when it got started. I mean, I came in '85. I'm not sure when it first got started, to be honest with you. But I know it was a pretty small group at that time. But they were probably the two big shakers and movers, probably along with others. And that's why I hate to say too much, because I'd probably leave somebody out that was, crucial in that decision too. but I know they were the ones that, saw the need for that and, started some of those early meetings. And I don't think we had but about 30 or 40 guys at the first meeting I went to in '85 to get things rolling. A lot of those people are retired now, or some of them even passed away.
So, so I guess with you coming in later, whenever you came into South Carolina and became a part of SCADA, did you have like a large involvement or with SCADA?
I wouldn't say a large involvement. No, I mean, it was important to me, especially the meetings. I really always enjoyed those because, you got to, like I said, you got a chance to always, talk with your peers in high school and then talk to, these guys that were at a collegiate level, some of the things that they had you never even heard of, which was kind of nice. That was always a good time. As far as I was on for a long time, I was on the committee to select the adult and student trainers for the Shrine Bowl of the Carolina game. We had a high school committee that did that, and there was a couple of us on that. I was on that committee for a long time because I was one of the Shrine Bowl athletic trainers for 25, 26 years.
Okay. And is that Shrine Bowl, is that just South Carolina players that are being picked and stuff like that?
Yeah, the Shrine Bowl is a high school all-star game where the best high school players from football players from high school play the best guys from North Carolina. And that game's been going on for, I don't know, 80, 90 years. Now it's kind of the last couple of years because of COVID, they haven't done it, but I'm hoping as soon as all this calms down, they'll start back up again. But that was a pretty big deal for football players in this state and North Carolina to be picked for that game. And in about 1981, they'd had college athletic trainers been covering that game in the early days, but around in the early 80s, the new athletic director for the Shrine Bowl game was a high school athletic director in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. He was the athletic director for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. He wanted to make the game all high school. You had high school players, high school coaches, and then you had college athletic trainers. He wanted high school athletic trainers to become involved with that. And there were 2 athletic trainers in Charlotte at the time, and I was one of them. So myself and my buddy we started the game, and I guess we thought we would just be there 1 year like everybody else, and 25 years later we were still there. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I bet. Definitely seeing some of like the top talent for sure, like seeing in North Carolina and South Carolina. So you said you kind of got picked just being in that Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I mean, it was just a stroke of luck. It wasn't because, I was the greatest high school athletic trainer around. It was just that at that time, Elton Hawley, who was over at Olympic High School, and I was at South Mecklenburg High School, we were Elton had been certified. He had gotten into that same program in North Carolina I was in a year earlier than I did. And so I was coming up on my last year and getting ready to sit for my exam. So they wanted certified athletic trainers. We were the only 2. He was certified and I was close. I mean, Charlotte-Mecklenburg's got a ton of athletic trainers now, but back in 1980, there weren't any. There were 2 of us at the time.
Great. And so I have like just 2 more questions kind of asking. So I know we always like try to get advice from different people in the profession, and so that's kind of the question. So if you were to like talk today with any young professional or just a new athletic trainer in the field, what important advice would you give to them?
No, man, making it hard on me. I guess I'd probably just say, if you love it, keep doing it. If you don't love it, find something else to do. I loved it. I love being around the coaches. I love being around the players. It gave me a feeling of that I was contributing to something, that I was, a needed part of a program. And, I think if you feel like that, you're going to have a great long career. And if you don't feel like that, you probably need to look for something else to do, because it's hard. Even today, with the way things have changed, it's still long, hard hours.
For sure. That kind of leads into this last question. So I know you had talked about having like a family and grandkids now. So I know like athletic training is a very heavy time commitment. And so what would be maybe some tips that you would give for someone who is concerned about that time commitment of athletic training, but that is wanting to be able to have a balanced family life?
Well, you can do both. I did both. Of course, it was helpful that my wife liked sports and was involved, and so it was kind of a family affair. My son was involved a little bit with doing some things, and my other son played football some, and my wife loved going to the games, especially the football games in the wintertime, and, mingling with the wives and, families from the coaching staff and stuff like that. So that helped a lot. And I enjoyed that. I missed that part of it a good bit.
Well, that was kind of all of my questions. I don't know if maybe there'd be anything that you would maybe want to expand on. I know you said you're like at Irmo High School for a majority of your career. Was there anything that, did you ever have any aspirations to go and be an athletic trainer outside of a high school, or was the high school setting something that just felt right?
At the beginning, I had aspirations, to maybe move up to the collegiate level. I thought that would be pretty good. I thought that would be a nice step up. I admired, I respected those guys. I don't know if it was more of a romantic view than a realistic view, but that's one thing that coming to South Carolina, once I got to kind of rub elbows and get a chance to talk to like Mr. Hoover and Andy Clausen and some of the other guys that were at the college level, I'll tell you the truth, I really got over that pretty quick. Seeing what, back in those days, all that traveling that they were having to do. And after a couple of years of those meetings and meeting with those guys, that ambition, that fire kind of died away. I had a really great course. I had a great situation where I was at Irmo High School too. And that helped a lot. If you're somewhere and you're miserable, I guess you're always looking around. But my situation was so good, I was really never needing to look around. And then really just listening to those guys talk, mainly after the meetings, sitting around, having a glass of milk and stuff. I thought, man, I don't know. That's not for me. All that traveling and being away from home so much. You're away from home so much just being a high school athletic trainer. I thought, now I'm going to be away on the weekends too. And that's not going to work. So I got over that pretty quick.
Yeah. College and professional sports can definitely have a lot of trauma for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I guess that's the good part of athletic training, is that it's kind of there's not like different fields, but like different areas for people to go into that best suit them. So like not everyone has to go to that college or professional. You can try to find basically your clique and like where you feel best and most comfortable.
Right. You know, and I noticed a lot of the college guys too that were assistants, you know, would get put places they didn't necessarily want to be. And you know, as an athletic trainer in high school, you know, you got to taste everything, you know, all the time. I enjoyed that part of it too. I would have liked to have specialized in one thing. I thought that might be nice, but in the end, looking back on it, I'm kind of glad I got to work with girls softball and, you know, tennis and everybody. And you learned a little bit of something from all those guys that helped you out in the other things that you did.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I've had both college rotations here at South Carolina and then also different high school rotations. And I mean, sometimes the best education is at that high school setting because you are getting that hands-on, a lot more hands-on experience. And I mean, it's something that's hard to replicate at other clinical sites.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you another thing too. When I looked at the collegiate thing, you know, if you were the head trainer at Clemson or the University of South Carolina, that was a pretty good deal. But if you were the head trainer at some of those smaller schools, I was making a lot more money than they were. You know, with a family, that was a consideration too. You know, I couldn't go take a job where I'd get my pay cut in half. You know, that would have been crazy, and then be gone more. You know.
Sure.
Let me ask you a question. This may be not part of the interview, but you know, 10, 15 years down the road, you think any of you guys are going to be interested in being high school athletic trainers?
So I mean, I have kind of the aspirations to try to get to the NFL, and I think I think some people have fell in love. Like we've had the diversity of clinical settings, and people have felt, oh yes, high school is kind of the place that they feel the best, like feel the most joy out of being at. So I mean, I feel like there will be some that will want to strive for higher, like professional or like college, just because of the master's degree being a requirement. But also do think that there's going to be some, and probably a decent amount, that will decide to go to that high school. Especially, I know like you talked about how your aspirations of working in college kind of went out the window whenever you saw how much those athletic trainers were having to travel. And so I think that's going to be some of the things that us as students are going to be weighing as we come out of college. How much are we going to want to travel? How much, what like population are we wanting to work with? And
Right.
so I mean, I have had classmates that have talked about that they do want to be at a high school. So
Well, I hope so. I have a real concern. You know, I've seen a lot of changes, of course, with the NATA and the BOC over the, you know, last 40 years. And I'm into my 8th year of retirement now, and things have changed even in those 8 years. And just, I worry about what the future of high schools, what they're going to be. Of course, now a lot of them are having to change because of the changes that the NATA has made too. You know, because and like the guy when I left Irmo High School, I was still having to teach some classes, and now I had one assistant, and actually at the time he wasn't employed by the high school. He was working for a PT group that, you know, was contracted out to us. But so in the 8 years I left, I was teaching some classes and being the athletic trainer, and now, and with one assistant, 28 of those years with no assistant. And now the guy that's over there now has no classes to teach and has 2 full-time assistants who teach at the high school, and then another one who's coming from Prisma. So it's been, you know, things are changing for the better.
yes, for sure. I know, like you said, like they have athletic training for Prisma, so I think that could be like the setting that keeps those athletic trainers in that high school, and hopefully that there won't be a shortage. And then also, I've had like classmates and like the class ahead of me, like they've had basically the desire to teach, and so that's the high school setting is kind of offers that in a way. And I mean, again, I know you talked about like how decisions do sometimes are based on monetary and like money. And so if those teachers or if those athletic trainers go into the high school setting, then they can decide to become a teacher if that's something that they're really wanting to do and get more money in that
Yeah.
as well.
If you're single and all, the money's probably not a big issue early on. You're all fired up, you get all that vim and vigor, and and I understand that because that's the way I felt at the beginning. But then when you start having children and things like that, it does matter how much money you're making, and you can't give up a job and move up, so to speak. If you want to consider that moving up, going to a collegiate, and then take making half as much money, that didn't make any sense. So, and of course, back when I was doing it, you had really good benefits too. So I don't know how it is for the new teachers today, but anyway, things change, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully with like our increase of education and having to get accredited or like getting certified, you have to get a master's. Hopefully that kind of just keeps to increase our value, and then hopefully we're able to show our value in that, and then plus just making sure that we can be adaptable to these different settings that we're being placed in.
I hope so too.
But yeah, that was kind of all the questions I had. I don't know if you have any more questions. Of course,
No, I appreciate it.
answering.
Take care, man.
All right, thank you.